Hi everyone, here's a look at Mid-Ohio sports car course in the PM18. Now the 100 marker is sort of your braking and turning point into turn 1. It's very important to get turn 1 on the apex, and if you clip the inside curb or you run a little bit wide, you tend to go out and catch the grass, which can really muck you up. So you're a little bit better to bring it into a fairly early apex than just be tentative on the throttle to make sure it gets the right line through here. So you're wanting to turn in at around about the 100 marker, maybe a little bit earlier. I say that's a 100-foot marker, not a 100-meter marker. And bring in, the front wheel should track roughly in line with this yellow line here. And then that will lead you onto the yellow curb there, which tends to launch the car if you clip it. You don't want your front left wheel up on that. And you want to use all the track. So the second you've got the car in line, start reducing the lock in the wheel so it runs out here. Now you have to be very careful around this track of the cones because they cause a lot of damage to this PM18. So if you hit them, I'm not sure if it damages the front wing, but you can lose a lot of lap time when you hit them. So don't go out near them at all. Keep the car away from them. Down the 4 through here. Nice tight line. Stand away from the cones. Now there are so many ways that you can take this corner. It's quite an interesting corner. I remember in the old Pro Mazda you'd bring it into quite an early apex and then get on the throttle hard, which would minimize the track distance. But on this car, if you bring it into an earlier apex and get on the throttle, the back end just won't stick because you've got too much turn in the wheel. So what you want to do is you want to more brake in a straight line than bring it to a later apex, whether you can get the car straight at the apex before you get on the throttle. That way you minimize your wheel spin and maximize your drive. You don't want to be fighting the car all the way through this corner. So I'm bringing it down into a late apex, holding around a middle line. You're wanting the apex around here somewhere. Bring it in, then you can go full throttle and push the car out. Now it's still complaining a little bit on exit because there was a fair amount of still steering lock in when I started to ramp the throttle up. So the car's still nearly at mostly full turn when you're getting the throttle up at 3/4 mark. So that's going to be a bit too much for it to handle with an exit unless you have a really understeer prone setup. If you went into an earlier apex, the oversteer on exit would be much worse. Live with a bit of the throttle oversteer on exit and that's good. So nice straight line. You want to track with the right hand side of the track because that's the shortest line through here. So you're wanting to really make sure on this next section you get the apex. Now I'm not really, although there are braking markers here, by this point my attention is focused solely on this apex. So you really need to bring, because if you go too deep in this corner, you're having to bring the car right, then back left again. You really lose a ton of speed through the next 3 corners. Because it's offline through this one, offline through the next one, then probably offline again through that next right-hander. So you want to bring it into this nice early apex here. I was a little bit wide of that, but I got away with it. Could have been a slightly bit more to the right, but you also don't want to get the curb too much, so it's kind of a compromise. You track the track around the middle. You don't want to bring it out to the far right or to the far left. You're kind of just running a nice line through the middle of the track. Then you're bringing it to a very tight left apex. Now you're really just being hesitant when you get up here because if you get too much on the throttle, the car's going to get snap oversteer, on throttle snap oversteer. And again, you're not going to the right or to the left. You're kind of tracking in the middle of the track and you want to then bring it back to a hard left, which opens the next corner up. Then bring it into this right-hander. Now through here, you want to get the front right up on the curb a little bit, and then you can start to really apply the throttle. But if you run wide of this curb, again, you're going to be offline. You're going to have to really wait to get in the throttle, which is going to cost you time. So I'm on the curb and just pushing the throttle, and that'll push the car out. So I'll have a look at that in more fast motion. It should be a nice flowing line through roughly the middle of the track. So down entry. It didn't quite get that first apex perfect, which did mean that at this point here, I had to focus a bit more on bringing the car back in line, whereas if it hit that first apex, it would just be a little bit further to the right, and therefore it wouldn't have to turn right and then left as much. It could just turn right a little less. But it was okay. I brought into a tight left-hander here. Just modulating the throttle so the car doesn't get oversteer. And you're getting through that. This apex here was nice. It really clipped that inside curb to allow me to get hard on the throttle and then push the car out. So you want to bring the left hand front left wheel up on this inside curb through here to open the line up. Now the line through these corners here is very precise. You really want to get the... I'm not too worried about this next right apex here over the crest. This one, not too concerned about it. It's more getting the car flat and out to that outside curb over there. So you're a little bit wide that one, that's fine. So you really want to get your front left up on this curb here because this next corner here is a very important corner. These kind of last two apexes, you want to be on this left one. Right one doesn't matter so much. It's mostly, if you go there, you're going to be at a more of an angle when you go out and hit this and you have to turn the car more. So I kind of avoid it to open the corner up a little bit. I'm going to get the front left up here. Now this next apex is very important. I find this car tends to have a lot of understeer when you're turning in because you're going quite fast through here. You're going 100 miles per hour and you want to bring it in there at full speed. And it just tends to, because of the camber of the track, it tends to not want to turn. It's very important to get this apex. If you run wide, you're going to have to wait a long time to get in the throttle, which really impacts your drive. And also if you run wide, what you tend to want to do is get in the throttle early, but that can push you off the track because it just understeers the car. So get that apex, throttle. Still complaining a little bit. It's basically oversteering all the way through that corner. And then you get your nice drive out. So in fast. Got the corner nicely and got the throttle. This car, compared to the last Pro Mazda, really likes to oversteer around this track. The last Pro Mazda was like on rails through all this middle section, but this, you really are having to modulate the exit throttle to stop it on throttle oversteering. So you want to hug tight right here. And this is another apex. This track really is about hitting the apexes, although that seems straightforward because every track is about this. If you are offline here, you're losing a ton of time. There's no way to take some wide line apex and bring it back because if you miss this apex here, you're going to be wide into the next corner. So you want to bring the car in, up on the apex. And then you can throttle out, use all that runoff strip. You want to bring it back to the middle of the track here. Now the line here, again compared to the last Pro Mazda for the people that used to run it, is more about opening the corner up because the old car you could hug a bit of a tighter line and you could really use the front end and get it out of the corner. This one you more want to open a wider line to a later apex to get the car straight before getting on the throttle. So tracking quite a late apex and getting the car straight. And then it kind of wants to oversteer a little bit through the last section, but it shouldn't be too bad. This track is full of cambers and bumps and little rises and falls. So it doesn't get a really nice platform for the car to be smooth on entry and exit. Like you come from Spa where most of the corners are completely flat or a very small hill. This track just doesn't have that nice stability in this car. Now I actually ran out of fuel as I was going over the finish line, but it didn't cost me too much. So here's the track in full motion. I remember in the last Pro Mazda we were getting in the 14s. This is still only lowish 15s, but there probably is still work to go. So it probably will get in the 14s by the time we're actually got a bit more advanced setups on it. Here's the lap in full speed.